Amelia Mosley here with a BTN Special that's all about women in history. Here's what's coming up. We take a look back at the history of women in the workforce and find out about some amazing Indigenous Australian women. But first up, we're going to take a look back at the history of women in Australian politics. From the women who fought for the right to vote to our current female leaders and efforts to attract the next generation of women to politics. Take a look.
The 50% of the electorate are women and their point of view should be represented.
But it is not as a woman that I have been elected to this chamber. It is as a citizen of the Commonwealth.
I would like to see more women in Parliament to take part in the decision-making.
They're strong words spoken by strong women who were pioneers in Australian politics. But you don't have to go back that far to find a time when women had no say at all in the way our country was run. Around 130 years ago, no Australian woman, in fact, no woman in the world, had the right to vote, let alone stand for Parliament. But it was right here in this very room that things changed. In 1894, South Australia's government became only the second in the world to give women the right to vote. But it also became the first in the world to give women the right to run for election. In 1897, South Australian Catherine Helen Spence became the first female political candidate. While she didn't win, she paved the way for more women to step up in the early days of Federation. But while most Australian women had the right to be elected to federal parliament from 1902, it took 41 years for a woman to actually win a seat. In fact, it was two women. In 1943, Dame Dorothy Tagney was elected to the Senate and Dame Enid Lyons was elected to the House of Representatives, and they walked into Parliament side by side.
This is the first occasion upon which a woman has addressed this House. For that reason, it's an occasion which, for every woman in the Commonwealth, marks in some degree a turning point in history.
You could tell a lot of people weren't expecting that turning point. There weren't even any designated female toilets at Parliament House. All the way up to the 1980s, only a handful of women were elected to our federal government. But over the next few decades, that changed a lot. We had female premiers, a female Governor-General, and in 2010, a female Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, I offer you my very warmest congratulations.
It took 3 more years for the first Indigenous woman to sit in Parliament.
My duty now is to work hard and make a difference.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Now we're used to seeing women in some of Australia's most powerful jobs, and some argue that women now have exactly the same opportunities as men. But others say women are still being treated differently, and that might be discouraging women from getting into politics or staying there. That said, most people agree we've come a long way.
When I grew up, I would probably like to be a politician generally because I have quite strong views on things. When I see high-profile women in government, it makes me feel good and that, that's a potential thing that I could pursue.
Being a boy, I think it is important because sometimes women have a better idea than men.
Whenever I see politicians around that are doing good for the community and for Australia, I feel very satisfied and I feel like Australia is becoming a bit more equal.
There have been some pretty big changes to the rights of women over the years, and some of the biggest changes have been in the workplace. Let's find out more. These days, boys and girls seem pretty equal. Both can finish school and choose to study at uni, vote when they turn 18, and work in just about any field. But not that long ago, things looked very different. If you were a woman in the mid-1800s, your main job was to get married and have kids. And everything you had, well, it would belong to your husband. Some women did work, mostly as servants, and only if they really needed the money. It wasn't until the late 1800s that women started to demand change. In South Australia, women became some of the first in the world to be given the right to vote, and the first to be allowed to run for Parliament. Australian unis also started opening their doors to women, which meant they could study to become doctors or scientists. But it was still unusual for most women to work. Fast forward to the 1940s and everything changed. As men all around the world went off to fight in World War II, many women went to work, often in jobs that only men were allowed to do before. Even though they weren't paid as much as men, many women enjoyed this work and they were good at it. But 5 years later, when the war ended, most were forced to go back to home life. By the 1950s, most Australian women could learn, vote and work if they wanted to, but usually in jobs seen as feminine, like as receptionists, teachers or shop assistants. But they often faced discrimination and were still generally paid less than men for the same job. Plus, if they got married, it was expected they would quit to focus on their new husband.
Just about an hour ago, I got you fired.
What? What did you do that for?
I figured that being my wife would take up all of your time.
Then came the 1960s and 70s, and women once again fought for their rights. There were some big revolutions, like the birth control pill, which meant women could decide when they had kids and how many. Protests also took place over equal pay, equal opportunities, even the right to be in bars with men. As time went on, the world changed even more. Women led countries and businesses, they went to space, became judges, and were ordained as religious leaders. A few years ago, Australia even got its first female PM. Now, Australian women can work in pretty much any field they like, and it's against the law to discriminate against women. So we've come a long way, haven't we? But it's not over yet. In some countries, women are still banned from doing certain jobs, or even basic stuff like driving or opening a bank account. On average, women still earn less money than men. Fewer women run big companies, fewer sit in Parliament, and men are still more likely to get promoted over women. But in Australia especially, things are way better than they used to be, and will keep getting better, thanks to all those determined women who went before. Finally today, we asked some school kids to help tell the stories of some Indigenous women who have made a big difference and been an inspiration to others. Here they are.
Hi, I'm Sunny, and the woman who inspires me is Rosalie Kunoth-Monks.
But Mina says they hunt the crocodiles.
She was born in 1937 in Amatjeri country in the Northern Territory.
It's time for your music practice.
She is probably best known for being the first Indigenous woman to have a lead role in a film. After the film's success, Rosalie devoted her life to Indigenous issues. She has worked with the Department for Aboriginal Affairs, ran Aboriginal Hostels Legal Aid, and is a member of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission. I chose Rosalie because she inspires me to follow my dreams.
Hey, I'm Richard, and the woman who I'm inspired by is Fanny Cochran-Smith. Fanny was a Palawa woman, born in 1834, 2 years after the Black War had ended, which had killed hundreds of Indigenous people. Between 1899 and 1903, she recorded songs on a wax cylinder in Tasmanian Indigenous language. These recordings are really important because many believe she is the last fluent speaker of Tasmanian's original Indigenous language. Fanny inspires me because without her there would be no evidence of any Indigenous Tasmanian language.
Hi, my name is Josh, and the woman who inspires me is Gladys Elphick. She was born in Adelaide in 1904. She was a Ghana and an Adelaide woman. In 1965, she helped form the Aboriginal Women's Council. The council carried out a great deal of work for the Aboriginal community, including campaigning for the yes vote in the 1967 referendum. It changed Australia's constitution so Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were counted as citizens. Gladys inspires me because she works so hard for the Aboriginal rights.
Hi, I am Fraser, and the person I've chosen is Trukanini. Trukanini was a famous Tasmanian Aboriginal woman. Trukanini was born in 1812 when Pallara people were at war with European settlers. To keep their people safe, Trukanini and her father convinced other Pallara people to move to a settlement on Flinders Island. They were promised blankets, food, houses, and their custom would be respected. But instead, the island became a prison and many became sick and died. Trukanini and 45 other people were moved to another settlement on the mainland where conditions were even worse. Some say this made her strong again because she was the last of the group to survive. Trukanini inspires me to be strong and resilient.
Hi, I'm Shanti. The person I look up to is Nova Paris, who was born in Darwin in 1971. She identifies with the Kaiga people of the East Kimberley, Yarra people of the West Kimberley, and Marin people of the West Island land. When Nova was 18, she went to Perth determined to become a champion hockey player. And after several years of training really hard, she made it into the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta with the Aussie women's hockey team, the Hockeyroos, where she became the first Indigenous Australian to win a gold medal.
The 25-year-old became the first Aborigine and Northern Territorian to win an Olympic gold medal as a member of the Australian women's hockey team at Atlanta.
But in 2013, Nova made a massive career change, and she became Australia's first Indigenous federal politician. Nova Paris inspires me to be an athlete like her.
These are just a few of the women who changed Australia and made it better.
And because of them, we can grow to be whoever we want to be.
And hopefully inspire kids for the future.
And that's it for our Women in History special. If you'd like to find out more, including heaps of teacher resources on this topic, then please just head to our website. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.